Order. Welcome, everybody. Bienvenue tout le monde. This is our 146th annual council meeting. So in light of that, I pulled out our strategic plan, and I just want to kind of go over a couple of things with council and just for the public so that we can remember, you know, the goals that we've set and why we're here and the work that we're doing and how it's linked. So our vision in Argyle is that we are the community of choice to invest, live, and play. That is our vision. Our values that we work towards are community, innovation, service excellence, and inclusion. And the goals that we've set for the 5-year strategic plan have to do with accelerating and supporting economic growth across and inside the municipality, improving governance and community representation, and keeping our businesses and residents healthy and safe, planning and delivering a modernized municipal service, and providing a welcoming, healthy, and inclusive environment for our residents and visitors. I just thought it would be a good idea to revisit that and remember why we make the decisions that we make and why we have certain things that we focus on. So thank you for that. We have no regrets this evening. Number 2, we have the invitation to stand and move on the agenda. So if you feel the need to get up at any time, feel free to do so. Number 3, we have the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any additions to the agenda this evening? I do. I have one. I had sent it prior to the meeting. It is a late edition, and I apologize. It is a letter of support that I'm looking to have approved. And I would like to add that under 15E. 15E would be for decision and discussion. So if that is okay with council, would somebody be willing to make a motion to approve it as amended? So it's moved by Councillor Surratt and seconded by Councillor Bourque to approve the agenda as amended. Any questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare this evening on any of the agenda items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. But remember, if you have a conflict at any time, you can declare it. Number 4 on our agenda, we have a presentation this evening. We have Ray Pache, who is here this evening, who will present to us on instrument of subdivisions. So we can have you come to the mic, Ray.
It's a fairly short presentation, and I'd just like to thank everybody for inviting me. And I know most of the people around the table, but for those who don't know me, I'm a Nova Scotia land surveyor. I've held a commission since 1985. And I worked 17 years in private industry, and I spent the last 30 years with the Department of Natural Resources as the Crown Land Surveyor for Yarmouth, Digby, and Shelburne. So that's enough about me. And we'll just move on to talk about instruments of subdivision. And we'll move ahead. Oop, that one, okay. So I'm not sure how much you know about instruments of subdivision, but these are subdivisions made by just a sheet of paper. Nobody needs to go on the ground to identify where the boundary lines are, and this is a particularly unusual one where the subdivision has been made in what surveyors tend to call and developers flag lots. So they're very narrow coming to the road and big enough in the back so that you can fit your 250 foot circle inside it and subdivide the land. The problem comes with if you look at that and nobody's been on the ground and there isn't one boundary line anywhere, when you start building houses, you know, people start building houses on other people's land, and people put boundary lines themselves where they think they might go, and they end up in the wrong place. And as easy as it seems on a piece of paper to draw something like that, it's not that easy to draw on the ground. And we're just going to move on. That's what it looks like. That's the piece of ground that it's on, right kind of in the center. And there's trees everywhere, and there's a kind of a flat spot. It looks wet to me, but there's no analysis been done. Nobody's looked to see if it's wet, if you can actually build something on it or not. It's just the subdivisions have been just made, and then you have to deal with getting a septic system on it, you know, staying the right distances away from boundary lines. And a lot of the lots would end up where you couldn't actually develop them at all. And that causes a problem. Another problem that happens with instruments of subdivision, if you can just imagine that you've got a piece of land that your deed says is 1,000 feet wide, and you're going to divide it into 4 pieces. And so you slice it up into 4 pieces on an instrument of subdivision. They're each 250 feet wide. And then at the end of the whole thing, one of the people says, I'm going to hire a surveyor, and he's going to lay this stuff out. So he lays all the things out, and lo and behold, the piece of land's not 1,000 feet wide. And so you've got 3 lots that are permitted, and then the other one's an illegal subdivision lot. So then what do you do? And I'm just gonna move on. And I apologize if this ends up being anybody's property, but I didn't check any of the properties against any of the names at this table. But again, this is just subdividing pieces of land, and that looks less of a problem than the others. But it's still, there are no boundary lines on the ground. And you've probably all heard that good fences make good neighbors, good boundary lines make good neighbors too. And so that's the place there. Again, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of brush. You'd have no idea where your boundary line is. And again, if you look in the upper, I'm not sure if you can tell which one is which, but if you look at that shape and then look there up on the paved road, there's a little lot at the upper left-hand corner, and you see where they've been mowing not on their land. Mm-hmm. And so it causes encroachments that nobody even realizes. This is a really neat one because it's got a curve in it. And those are notoriously difficult to lay out on the ground. And so that's what it looks like on a piece of paper. And it's upside down from the other drawing, and I apologize for that, but the person that drew it with the north going down the page instead of up the page. But if you look everywhere where there's a boundary line, there's encroachments on somebody else's land. Everywhere. So, and that causes problems. I was involved in only one instrument of subdivision where I had to come and fix the problem after, and this was 30-something years ago. And there had been a lot created that was not legal, and so I went and was hired by a lawyer to go and determine where the boundary lines were. My bill was $10,000 at the end of that. And God knows what the lawyer's bills were. And plus buying the piece of land from the original landowner because they had encroached on somebody else's land. And so this is another one where somebody took somebody's survey plan and then divided it again. And that's the original one, and then this is what it looks like again. There's a few places on the one lot that goes kind of to the southwest a little bit there. You can see encroachments where people have been building a driveway going in and encroaches on another piece of land. So that's about it for the presentation of showing you what they look like. And the reason why I'm here is trying to encourage the municipality to adopt some subdivision bylaws instead of just using the Municipal Government Act to try to get around this. And the primary purpose for the Association of Nova Scotia Land Surveyors is the protection of the public. And all I can say is we've got, in the municipality, we've got bylaws about septic systems. We've got rules about building a house. You need an inspector to go look at your house when you're building it. All of that is to protect the public. And I maintain that allowing instruments of subdivision doesn't protect the public. And in fact, it does the public a great disservice. And beyond that, people who draw up the subdivision plans are, although they don't sign their name to it, and that's why it's difficult for our association to get after them, but they're doing survey work in our act. It says professional land surveying means the advising on, the reporting on, the supervising of, or the conducting of surveys to determine the horizontal and vertical position of any point and the direction and length of any line required to control, establish, locate, define, or describe the extent of or limitations of a title. And when you do an instrument of subdivision, if you don't do your own, then whoever's drawing it for you is in contravention of our act. So that's a pet peeve of mine and our association. But the most important thing for me is that allowing instruments of subdivision to go ahead is not protecting the public. And it ends up costing more money in the long run. And that's all my presentation is, and I'm just open to take any questions from anybody.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Oh.
Thank
Deputy
you.
Warden.
Thank you, Raymond. Good presentation. We informally went through this before, so I'm a little bit up and up on this with you. So the instrument that they use, or should I say, how can it be legal if it encroaches some of this? How does the government accept this as a legal document or a legal survey?
In most places in Nova Scotia, the local governments and the provincial government don't accept it, but the Municipal Government Act has got a part of it where you can do an instrument of subdivision. And the vast majority of the municipalities in Nova Scotia don't allow instruments of subdivision. It's nearly only in this end of the province that it's really, really rampant. There's a few other places where they happen, where councils have decided if you're going to do an instrument of subdivision, then a surveyor has to do it. He's the one that has to draw it. And so surveyors, or I say he or she, and if it's a complex subdivision, they just won't do it without going in field. So that helps protect the public a little bit. So generally in the province, local governments don't allow it because it just causes a lot of problems.
So if I can follow up, 30 years ago, roughly, give or take, I bought a piece of land where I live now. It was a dozen acres at the time, and it was done through instrument. And to be honest, it's all to do with saving money. And I'm sure that's what it's done for today, because the difference between an instrument back then and a surveyor was considerable.
Mhm.
So I think it would be a big difference. So, do you know the difference today? How much that is?
When I was in private practice 30 years ago, I can't ever remember charging for just a house lot anything less than $2,500. And so the scale is the same, it's just gone up.
Yeah.
And to do lots like are on that one there, to do one lot, it wouldn't surprise me if the bill was, $5,000 to $7,000 to do it. And I realize that cost is a big issue. But it sometimes grates on me a little bit after you see subdivisions and they get sold for, $250,000 for 3 or 4 lots, So, pay 3% of that or 4% of that to your surveyor, and then you're sure the lines are in the right place. And if there's a problem, we have to carry liability insurance, and so you've got somebody you can go after with a instrument of subdivision. If there's a problem, it's yours.
I do understand the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Foster?
Yes, Ray, you just basically answered my question by speaking to Deputy Warden Ted Sonia. My question was, how many municipalities in the province allow instruments of subdivision besides us? And what's the situation like in this end of the province? So could you be more specific about this end of the province in terms of, does the municipality of Yarmouth allow them? Municipality of Barrington, perhaps, municipality of Digby or Clare?
Now, all those municipalities have been allowing instruments of subdivision in
Okay,
this end of the province, Barrington and Shelburne.
okay,
And as soon as you start moving up the valley, you get changes. And
okay,
I don't speak to people in the municipality of Yarmouth very often
Right. Okay,
in my career at Natural Resources. I really didn't need to, but I think that I heard that they were talking about
okay.
some bylaws, but I'm not sure.
Like, what about the town of Yarmouth? Because that would be a different setting even, a town
Yeah,
compared
the
to a
town of
rural-
Yarmouth has very few lots that would be big enough that you could subdivide them.
Right,
with,
okay,
by
I
instrument.
understand.
So, yeah.
Would they be required to be surveyed?
I'm not sure
Yeah.
anymore. Like, they didn't used to years and years
Okay.
ago, but now I suspect that
Right.
you'd have to go through subdivision planning.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Boudreau?
Thank you, Warden. I'm just curious that I didn't think this would be allowed because pieces of land back in the day were passed on by word of mouth. And without it being surveyed, how do they know where the exact lines are?
It's very difficult. People tend to think that surveying is a fairly easy thing to do. It's really not.
Yeah.
Not legal surveying with
Yeah.
like boundary lines
Yeah.
and stuff. And I mean, it depends. If
Yeah.
in the countryside, you ask somebody where the boundary is or where the corner is, and they'll say, well, somewhere around here.
Yeah,
And in
yeah.
the city, they say, it's right there.
Yeah.
So it's according to,
Yeah.
how big your piece of land is and how much it's worth, I suppose. But,
No, I had no idea this was happening, really.
yeah, and
So-
it's, like I said, it's not totally unique to the western end of the province, but this is where
Yeah.
the bulk of
Yeah.
the things happen.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for the chance to be able to sit here and talk about it.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I want to say thank you too. I learned about this as well. This is really good information, and we're fortunate to have somebody in our community who knows about this and to come present to us and let us know. So it gives us something to think about for sure.
Well, it comes to land surveying, I'm passionate, and if anybody has any questions anytime, get the question to me through Ted or Nicole or whoever. I'll answer any questions that I can.
Thank you.
Thanks for your
We
time.
appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. We're going to move on to number 5, the approval of the minutes. So the minutes, 5A from the Executive Council meeting minutes from March 26, 2026. Any errors, any issues with those minutes? Okay, seeing none, they're approved as presented. 5B, our special council meeting minutes from April 1st, 2026. Any issues with those? Seeing none, they are approved as presented. Number 6, council announcements. Do any councilors have any announcements they would like to make this evening? Councilor Digdon.
Thank you. Just have a couple that I'd like to, fun night for the Lines in Pubnico will be held on the 14th of April, Tuesday. That selling tickets from 6 to 7 and drawing of prizes starts at 7. And also, we're going to be holding a fundraiser for a new bus for the Nikhil home, and that'll be happening down in Pubnico on the 9th of May. We call it a cake parade in Pubnico, and it's always been called a cake parade. Now, what a lot of people do is they'll cook, they'll make sweets or loaves of bread or beans or whatever. They drop it off at the fire hall in West Pubnico, and there'll be somebody there to receive the baked goods or the cooked goods anytime after 9 o'clock in the morning. At 1 o'clock, they start selling tickets, and there's a bag that hangs by each little sweets or whatever, and you go around, and if you got number 5, you can put a number in and keep walking around, put some more numbers in, and it's usually a good fundraiser. We're hoping it'll be a very good fundraiser. As some of you people may know, I volunteer to drive for the Nikhil home, the bus, and when you're loading the residents on and taking them out for a drive, it's something to see, honestly, the happiness it brings them. And so we're hoping to have a good day for them, a good fundraiser. Some of the residents are planning to come down if all goes good. That's going to be on the 9th of May. And if anyone has any questions on it, they can get a hold of me and I'll try and help them out. So that's about all I have this evening. Thank
Okay.
you.
So not just cakes, can be sweet, any kind of sweets.
It can be sweets, it can be beans. Some people bring
much I love to bake.
beans. Pardon me?
You know how much I love to bake, so,
I know how much you love to bake, pickles, exactly.
okay,
Yes, so, and we'd love to have you there that day, on the 9th of May.
okay,
Yep, thank you.
thank you. Counselor Foster?
Yes, I'd like to remind the residents of a very important date that's coming up very soon for the municipality, and that's the 15th of April. That is the deadline to get in the applications for grants to organizations. It's also the deadline for people who wish to apply for a rebate on their property taxes. And they must have their 2024 notice of assessment in order to qualify, or possibly 2025, but very few people would probably have that yet, because everybody would have it for the taxation year 2024, which is acceptable. 2025 is also acceptable if you have it, but a lot of people don't yet. Anyway, I just want to remind the public of that important date for those two items.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will continue on. Number 7 is the warden's report. It is attached. Any questions on that? Number 8, we'll continue on to number 8, committee reports. There are, for 8A, Western Counties Regional Library minutes are attached. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to report on? Okay, seeing none, we will continue on to number 9. So because this is our annual meeting, this is when we do our appointments of the different offices. So we will start with number 9, the appointment of our auditors. So we do have a suggested motion to approve Doan Grant Thornton LLP as auditors for the Municipality of the District of Argyle for 2026, 2027. Do we have somebody willing to make that motion? Moved by Councillor Surratt, seconded by our Deputy Warden. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Next, we have the appointment of our solicitor. So there is a suggested motion to approve Hood Fraser d'Entremont as solicitor for the Municipality of the District of Argyle for 2026, 2027. Somebody, moved by Councillor Bourque, seconded by Councillor Madden. Questions on that? Seeing none, yep, go ahead. Councillor
Wasn't quick
Foster.
enough on the button.
That's okay.
I have a question. Would that mean that we would have the same solicitor as we had last year?
It's the same one,
Okay.
right? Yes.
Is his name mentioned in the law firm there?
Fraser,
Oh, okay, yes, right, sorry.
okay?
That contract is in year 2 of 3, I believe. So there was a multi-year contract there, but we do the appointment annually anyway.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Number 11, we have the membership to NSFM and FCM. So we have a suggested motion to approve the membership to NSFM and FCM for the 2026-2027 fiscal year. Moved by Councillor Digdon, seconded by Councillor Surratt. Questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Number 12, the appointment of officers. So we have the suggested motion to approve the enclosed list of officers for the municipality of the District of Argyle for 2026-2027. Let me see. Do we want to list them for the public? Councillor Surratt?
I just noticed that we had 2 attachments, but I didn't really see the difference in the attachments. I don't know if it was just me or,
Sorry, that was my bad. There is one slight difference in the 2 attachments. Alex Ogden is listed under bylaw enforcement officer, and he should be. That is the correct attachment. But the other attachment does not have him listed. My apologies for that.
Would it be, should I read the? You can. I can? Okay, so for fire wards, we have chiefs, deputy chiefs for all the 9 districts of the municipality or serving the municipality through mutual aid. For building officials, we have Renee Jedry, John Sullivan, François Lagrandeur, and Alex Ogden. For development officers, we have Renee Jedry, John Sullivan, François Lagrandeur, and Alex Ogden. For bylaw enforcement officers, we have Mitch Colburn, François Lagrandeur, and Alex Ogden. And fire inspection, Mitch Colburn, François Lagrandeur. Dog control, Mitch Colburn, Alex Ogden, SPCA Nova Scotia, and sheep valuer Arnold Dayon. So those are the list of our appointments of officers. So it's moved by Councillor Madden, seconded by Councillor Bourque. Any questions on that one? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Now, next, number 13, we have a 7-day notice. We have 7-day notice for Article C61, our Code of Conduct for Elected Officials. So if you read through this and thought to yourself, this looks really familiar, as I did, it is, because it is the provincial Code of Conduct that we have adopted. However, we had our own Code of Conduct that you will see later on the agenda that we will repeal in order to adopt this one. So there's no motion to be made on that one. It's just 7-day notice for that one there. Number 14, old business. There's nothing there. Okay, 15 for decision and discussion. So 15A is to repeal and replace Article C1, Code of Conduct for Elected Officials. So that is our previous Code of Conduct that we had as a municipality. That was before the Provincial Code of Conduct came into effect. There is a suggested motion to repeal Article C1, Code of Conduct for Elected Officials, and replace it with the model policy from the province, Article C61, Code of Conduct for Elected Officials. Is anybody willing to make that motion? Okay, it's moved by Councillor Boudreau, seconded by our Deputy Warden, Saunier. Questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. 15B, we have the SPCA contract. So we've been talking about this a little bit, kind of waiting for this to come through. So the question that, yes?
Can we go back to 15A for a second?
Sure.
We repealed C1.
Yes.
And we haven't voted in
Yet.
C61.
C61 provincially is already in place, but it's for us. So I remember we had talked a while ago about, we had our own, so we looked at adopting our own as well, but what we're adopting is what's already in place. But it gives us the authority to use that as well for our own municipality. We just haven't done it yet. So as of now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if there was anything to come through, we would follow the Provincial Code of Conduct, which is what this is anyway.
We
But we haven't voted on it yet, that's why I'm asking the
Yes,
question.
yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
We're repealing one, we haven't approved this one yet, however, it is approved through the province. And the province is I don't like to use the word gold standard, but we have to abide by that one regardless.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we're premature to repeal this one before the other one kicks in.
I see what you're saying. Anything?
we did approve back in, I think it was, might have been even November, or it was a while ago, it wasn't last November, it was over a year ago when the province insisted that this code of conduct be put in place. We had mandatory training and we had to pass a motion to accept that. So we had accepted the policy way back then because the province told us so. What we didn't do was repeal the old one. So this is to clean that up, to make sure that the policy that's in place that is identical to the one that we said we were going to do all along. The provincial code of conduct applies. Their insistence on it overrides anything that we're doing here. We just don't want the old one there to confuse people as to which one it should be used.
And I remember also having a conversation around, the provincial one is definitely the one that we follow. However, we could add to it as well.
We could.
But what's there is not.
No,
It's what the provincial code of conduct is,
it's
but
identical.
it's identical. But at some point, we still could do that.
Correct.
Okay.
As long as it's not less forceful.
Yes.
Than the provincial regulations.
Yeah.
You can add additional obligations as long as it's not contrary to the provincial.
Right. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. If I go too fast, just tell me.
I'm just thinking too slow.
No. So we're looking back at the SPCA contract. So we had a contract in place. We were paying an annual, it was an annual fee. This is more of a per usage fee. It outlines the services that they will provide. Are there questions on this before, I see that Councillor Surratt has, would you like to ask a question on this before we?
Yes, please.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Thank you. This might be for our CEO. I see the date period beginning August 1st of 2025, and I'm not sure we had services during that time until we actually had another contract. So I was just curious to know why the date is starting then.
Through you, Madam Chair, good question. The negotiations for this contract commenced in that time, and we would have utilized the services of the SPCA informally, even without a contract. I quite agree that the date could easily say April. However, we've not received any no fiscal obligations to pay a bill. There has been no bill, nor do I anticipate a bill there. So while the technical date could be April, there's no negative impact by it being August. And again, we did utilize the services of the SPCA to assist our bylaw enforcement, local bylaw enforcement as well, at no additional cost.
I was just wondering, because this is based on how many calls we received, roughly, how many calls? Do you have any idea?
I do.
Okay, I'm just kind of curious.
It varies considerably by year, and in some cases, you might have multiple calls for one animal, in fact. On average, between 25 and 30 calls per year that we would receive. Of those calls, and again, this varies, so forgive my plus or minuses here. There may be 3 to 5 of those calls that would be considered potentially fierce and dangerous calls or biting calls. Many of the calls we get for dogs are the dog is barking, the dog is loose, the dog is not on a leash. Those are, I would consider, all infractions of our bylaw, but those would be considered more minor infractions of our bylaw. The whole point of having this contract and the way that it's written is that the SPCA would absolutely involve itself in fierce and dangerous situations, or situations where the dog isn't even considered fierce and dangerous, but is considered too aggressive or dangerous at the time for our current bylaw enforcement officer. It is at that, so 100% of the calls that dog calls that we receive now come to our bylaw enforcement officer here. They do not go to the SPCA. That was a confusing bit that we all clarified, and it's contractually now in place. Why is that important? Well, it's important because the SPCA isn't providing local services anymore. They're providing services that are significantly, they're sufficient services. They're well trained, but they're not local. So in order for us to be provided the kinds of services that the SPCA would provide, we need our bylaw enforcement officer to make an initial impression. Why is that important? I may have a complaint of a dog that is far more escalated than is what is actually happening, and oftentimes calls have to be investigated initially first. And from a practical perspective, if they're out of the valley or Bridgewater, by the time they get here, the dog is gone. So we have a better opportunity to get more local intel if we're using our local people. However, if there is a situation where the dog has already been designated as fierce or dangerous or has potential of being so, the SPCA will be called and they will travel. Their services include handling more aggressive, dangerous, or difficult animals. They deal with euthanasia. They deal with cruelty. They deal with infractions of a pre-established fierce and dangerous dog that the owner has not made accommodations for, etc. So we, as part of this agreement, this is a long answer. Apologize. As part of this agreement as well, we have made arrangements with the veterinary hospital in Clare. They will be responsible for the euthanasia of a dog if necessary, or any other vaccinations or any other tags, et cetera, that would be required under the bylaw. They would do that responsibility. And likely they would be transported by the SPCA because we will not be transporting dogs. It is a lesser service that the SPCA will provide, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the service of dog control will be lessened. My recommendation is that we sign in with the SPCA at this time. We've had reasonable experience with them on some of the more dangerous type calls. They've been rather accommodating. If that isn't the case, this contract has a 3-month exit. And we also have been in contact with our town and municipal neighbors under the possibility that if dog control issues and complaints escalate at the regional level, that we would need a more localized service to protect our citizens more effectively. Our bylaw enforcement officers will be obtaining specialized training in this area. They will not be dog control people, but they will obtain training to protect themselves in the unlikely event that there is a situation. Last thing I'd say about there are animals out there that have been designated as fierce and dangerous, and typically that means that they're usually designated that way when they've bitten, or that they've been aggressive, or there's usually there's a definition of it in the bylaw. Once a dog is defined as such, the requirement from the owner is very, very high. The dog can't go outside unless they're muzzled. They have to be secured in a pen. The pen has to be so high, it has to be secured to the top so the dog doesn't jump or dig under. It's very, very cumbersome. The insurance has to be increased for liability purposes. They have to be spayed, neutered, et cetera. There's all sorts of obligations that we would put upon the owner. It's not a very encouraging bylaw for somebody who owns a dog of that nature. Yet, there are still some owners that do own a fierce and dangerous dog, and as long as they are caring for it on their property and the signage is appropriate, that people are warned, they have the right to own that dog, as is anywhere else in this area. So I did want to take a moment to explain this because we've had a lot of issues around the community about this, and there's a lot of fear in some people around dogs, and sometimes that fear is rational, and sometimes it can be just a general fear of dogs. So we want to make sure that we do the best job that we can to make sure that the dog is not aggressive and is kept on the property, away from these citizens. But we expect to get more calls. We expect to get more calls because there are more increase in pet population in our area. It's a long answer to how many calls, right?
Thank you. Counselor Madden?
It escalated.
So, thank you, Madam Warden. In a case that a dog is euthanized, and the owner comes up and says that never should have happened, so now we're in a legal problem.
Yeah.
Who takes care of the legality, or the lawyers, or the?
Right. So I'll start by saying that's never happened to us, but I have known it to happen in other areas where the owner disagrees with the decision to euthanize. So the decision to euthanize will not be made by the municipality of the District of Argyle. It will be made by the SPCA. We are not in the position to make that decision. Many times, if a dog is euthanized, it's often encouraged to be a mutual decision so that that issue doesn't come up in the first place. However, there are the rare instances where there could be a legal battle, and who's responsible for those costs depends on who's named. My suspicion is that both the municipality and the SPCA could be named in a situation like that, depending on the situation. So we could be in a situation where we would be asked to defend or be part of a decision to defend a decision to euthanize a dog, which is precisely why we insist that the SPCA make that decision, because we don't have that qualification. The bylaw enforcement officer may make recommendations to that effect based on numerous infractions of the bylaw, but we would look to delegate that ultimate act to the SPCA.
Thank you.
Counselor Digdon?
Thank you. That's one of the things I was thinking about as well, but I think honestly, it's kind of taking it out of our control there as far as the municipality. If have a company like the SPCA or an organization, and we're paying them to take care of these fierce dogs and make the decisions, on our behalf. Is it going to be, well, no pun intended, but the cat's meow? I don't know. But right now, we don't have anything much, so for some protection for the people, and that I'd make the motion that we go with the SPCA.
So it is moved by Counselor Digdon to approve the SPCA contract as presented for the period beginning August 1st, 2025 to July 31st, 2028. Do we have a seconder to that motion? Seconded by Counselor Surratt. We kind of did that backwards. We did our questions first, but any other questions on that motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Number 15, we have the appointment of a member to Medical Clinic Executive Steering Committee. We have a memo attached. So at our last meeting, we approved a governance document. And in that governance document, we talked about approving a counselor to sit on the Executive Steering Committee for the medical clinic project. Is there interest in that? Counselor Madden?
Yes, I'm very much interested in joining that committee.
Okay.
If its council will allow it.
Okay. Deputy Warden Sonia?
I looked at this, thank you, and I saw, or I see three people on this council that would probably benefit to be in this committee, and that is Councillor Madden, because it is in his district. I'm sure that Councillor Surratt has a wealth of information when it comes to this clinic as well. And I'm pretty sure that you, Madam Warden, being on the doctor recruitment, have a lot. So I'm wondering who's best suited for this, or can we have more than one?
Well, if you look at it this way, because I did have a conversation with the CAO about that and with Councillor Madden, because I'm warden, I can sit on any committee.
Okay.
So I have no problem having, if Councillor Madden wants to be on the committee or whoever wants to be on it, because I can and will, whenever I can, I will attend those meetings as well. So does that satisfy your?
Yeah, to a degree. To follow up, would Councillor Surratt be in conflict?
Maybe,
I think we
I
have to
think-
determine whether there's a
Yeah,
conflict
yeah.
before going on.
Because we did talk about that a
Yes,
bit.
yeah.
It would, through you, Madam Chair, it would be her responsibility to declare conflict of her own. It's not for us to declare if she's in conflict, but there have been discussions, and in the interests of absolutely not going there, it might be advisable to not be on the committee where there may be decisions that could put her in a bad position. She could technically still be a committee member, but then the decisions might put her in such a place that would make her ineffective if there was a conflict. So I'm not suggesting there is one, but that is the concern that would be raised, I think.
Okay.
So we do have Counselor Madden who is interested. Is somebody willing to make a motion to, so it's moved by Counselor Brooke to approve Counselor Madden as the appointed member of the Medical Clinic Executive Steering Committee. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by our Deputy Warden. Any other questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried.
Thank you, Council.
15D, our draft policy for out-of-region events. So this was brought forward, I believe it was Counselor Madden who asked last meeting if staff could draft a policy regarding different events. So when organizations come to us that are not within our municipality requesting financial requests, how we could best deal with it. So there's no decision to be made yet on this policy, but it's there. It was there for discussion. So I'm sure you've all had a chance to read through it. This is our opportunity to discuss it. How do we feel about this policy? Does this serve the needs of what we're looking for? What do we think? I had a question. I was wondering, I have a couple of questions, actually. So does this policy exclude, if somebody makes a request, a financial request through our grants to organizations, and they're not within the Municipality of Argyle, is that separate, or is that like totally different? CAO Muse?
That's a good question. I would say the answer is the way that it's written here now. If it is funding support for an out-of-region event, so you can have an out-of-region ask that isn't an event, that wouldn't fall here. But if it's an event and it falls within our grants to orgs, I would say that you have to, that this would apply.
Okay.
That the way that it's written today, that you could only give up to 20% of that.
Okay.
Of that particular event, even if it's through the regular grants to orgs ask.
Okay. I did have a couple other questions. Are you sure? Okay, so would this also, I was thinking, but I think you just answered it. So if we had a presentation, somebody come and make a presentation and they had a request, a financial request, same, we would use this policy for that, if it was an event outside of our municipality.
Correct. The way
Okay.
that it's defined in the policy, correct. And it would be there would be a cap there, so it wouldn't matter what they asked for.
Right.
You would be limited to the cap.
Okay, and my last question, I was just curious, would this come out of our sponsorship budget? Like, what would the budget line be that we would use for these requests?
So the ones that happened before, it has varied. So
Yeah.
so sometimes we had a line for, it certainly would not fall under sponsorship. I'll
Okay.
start by saying that. What usually, those sponsorship opportunities that can be slightly different. This is, an illustration would be Music Week. Request for Music Week. At times, if it was through a regional subsidiary, it might actually be a special line item on your budget.
Okay.
Oftentimes, these requests don't fall in your normal budget lines because they don't come in by the 15th of April. They come in when the event is confirmed, or as, so many of them don't actually fit there. So I don't, we could look into creating a line specifically for this, but we don't have that technically right now.
Okay, I was just curious. Okay, thank you. Deputy Warden Sonia.
Thank you, Madam Warden. You partially answered my question with the last one, yeah, but are you saying there would be a 20% cap on any ask?
It,
Of the total budget.
yeah, it's, the way it's written here, and keep in mind, I'm repeating what's written. This is, if you don't like this, it's for you to change for sure. But the municipal contributions towards such events shall be capped at 20% of the total approved event budget or total eligible funding request, whichever is less. So so the budget could be $10,000 and they're asking for $8,000, the 20% applies to the $8,000, not the total budget.
They could be asking for 100,000.
Right, it could be a $100,000 budget, and they have 50,000 from the province of Nova Scotia, and they're looking to, they got 10,000 of their own. It's 20% of the amount that they've requested from you.
So is it possible to have a cap on our budget? In other words, we can't afford to give you any more, not a dime more.
Absolutely, that could absolutely be the case, and you could do that by policy. You could set that by policy. The danger of doing that is that you never know what's going on with these events, and sometimes they're held by subsidiary companies, and sometimes they're not. So there may be a bond spiel. So we don't own the curling club, but they might be asking us for that. Versus Music Week has traditionally been done by Yasta, which is a subsidiary company. If you do that, it does give us some more understanding of how far you want to go with that. And of course, you would write it in the policy that you could override that, but only council could override that.
I admire a council I kind of baptized at the council of yes. However, I think we try to say yes to everything, and then we give if we can. But if we had a policy, it would make it less personal. It would make it better for council to make that decision, I think.
Guidelines.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Bork.
Yes, thank you, Warden. I think you answered my question, but say there's an event and they need to secure, sometimes they have to have an amount that is secured to ask for funding elsewhere. So I think you answered that question. Is that would that be into this policy as well?
I believe that it would. I
Yeah.
can't see that it would fall in any other policy, which means if they were asking for $10,000 total and they were asking you for a third of that, you could only give them $2,000, which is 20% of that 10. And unfortunately for the organization, they would have to find the difference somewhere else.
So do we have a budget for in case there's events that come up or anything like that? Do we have a budget line or of?
We do, usually. So it depends. So we have a set line with Yasta because Yasta has they'll bring out, they have it's not so much not always an event budget. Sometimes it's, we have a strategic plan that we're doing and ACOA's funding, 30% and whatever, and we need the money for that. Those can be set lines. There's also what we would call an extraordinary request, and we would put in a smaller amount there. Typically, what happens is these asks are rather large, and so we usually have to bust that line, as small as it might be, in order to make a decision there. So we've, historically, if you've made that decision, okay, are we in a surplus, Mr. CEO? Yes, okay, we'll decide. We're going to say yes to this. I think, and I think to the deputy warden's point, having the policy in advance really sets that boundary right away. So it's not a political decision. You're not making a choice because you know or like A or B. You're saying, if it's not in Argyle, we appreciate the value, but it's not in Argyle. So Argyle events, that's our primary responsibility, and we understand that this policy basically states that, it doesn't say it, but it suggests that if we have an event in Argyle, we don't traditionally see a third funding from other units. So what we're saying is, well, that this is kind of to make that clear to other parties that that's the limit.
We should have a third, even though they're in Argyle.
Well, and perhaps that's a discussion that can be had amongst the three units, but it's more of a political one.
Certain ones,
Yeah.
anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Digdon.
Thank you. Policies and bylaws, sometimes they're good things, sometimes they can be detrimental to helping out what you may want to bring in the municipality. What I'd like to see is we can leave it at 20%, and that unless a larger amount is approved by council. And that way, at least it would give us the opportunity to at least discuss it, like, you know, and you're not stuck nailed to that 20%. And sometimes it might be like if there is something good going on, whether it be in the municipality of Argyle or in Yarmouth or the municipality of Yarmouth, it may be something that would really benefit our people in our municipality, but we have to say, no, we can only give you 20% because of the total, because that's what our policy says. So I'd like to just see a little more leeway in it myself. It's good, and God knows, anyone that knows me knows that I'm all for Argyle and Argyle first. There's no saying I'm not. But at the same time, I'm just kind of broadening our horizons there, that we don't jam ourselves in a corner and say, I'm sorry, we can't partake with any more money because we don't have no more because of our policy. That's all. You know, just
Thank you.
something to talk about.
Counselor Surratt?
Thank you. I appreciate the staff pulling this together and trying to kind of nail out some of these issues. I guess for me, the word event feels boxy. It feels like it's limiting in terms of what we're talking about. So if you think over the past year of the requests that we've received, many were not an event necessarily. That might have been a charitable donation to an organization, or it might have been a team that needed some, like, it's just, I just question whether event, and I don't want to take words out of Councillor Madden's, you know, request here, but I'm just wondering if it's too boxy in terms of what qualifies for all of the requests that we get, when we get many requests outside of the grants to organization. And so that was my kind of only concern about if it's too boxed into one small segment of the request we get.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking the same thing. Is it only events that we're thinking about here, or is it broader than that? Because I feel like we do get requests that are not just events.
Music,
Right.
or
Right. I agree. So what would you like from us?
I can, what I've heard here today, and if somebody has something else to say, please do. I've heard consider expanding this idea of event, which I think is a absolutely legit concern. So by doing this, I think the right thing to do would be to review historically what has been requested. So we'll do that as part of refining this. The second part is I will provide, maybe options around the language around the 20%, because there've been discussions about, is it 20? And does council have leeway? And we'll also, in another draft, consider whether or not there should be a total maximum in the budget, and that maximum would be supported by an actual budget line item, so that you know for sure this is the amount. In doing that as well, I would add that it may actually take your non-Argyle grant requests off of that picture. So some of the funding might actually, your Argyle only requests, it's an all-encompassing number. Maybe that number goes down a little bit. Maybe that the number for outside goes up a little bit, but this is only for Argyle up here. This is outside down here. Those are things that we can consider as a second draft to the bylaw. What have I missed? Have I missed anything there?
Counselor Madden, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I just like to thank the council for actually, supporting this to a certain extent. Is it a perfect policy? We don't know. I'm the type of guys who will, let's try it and see what happens. Let's adjust it. Let's give it a pilot program and go from there. The 20% I'm happy with. The whether it's a regional event, but I think the gist of it is working for us. As far as when somebody comes in and asks, it's always like, "Oh, what do we do, what do we do?" But we have a policy now, and it just takes it off our back to say, we can give you 20%. Can you tweak it a bit? Sure, and I think we should probably look at it further before we adopt it, but I'd like to see it adopted before the budget, if that comes up. Thank you.
Deputy Warden?
Thank you for allowing me a second time. Thank you, Councillor Madden, for bringing this to the table. I think we've all talked about it and wanted to bring it to the table in the past. I caution setting or not setting a 20%. If we allow to go past that 20% for special occasions or special things, we have to be specific on that one, because we're opening up a can of worms here and going right back to where we were, as far as I'm concerned. So the wording needs to be, if we're gonna have a policy at 20% and then say, you know, this one doesn't cover that, and we're gonna go and give them 50%, well, the next people coming in gonna ask for more. I just think we need to be careful with the wording. I'm not opposed to giving more, but if we want this policy to change the way we've been doing business, we've gotta change the way we've been doing business. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do you feel like you have enough direction?
I feel like I've heard from council, and I think I have a very clear idea of how we can make this, improve this. What we'll also do is I will be speaking with my director of finance, and we might actually shift some line items. You know, the way people apply is meaningless. Like, our application process will not change, but nor does it have to. If people from outside Yarmouth are applying for funds, it doesn't matter to them where that money comes from, is the point I'm trying to make. So to Councillor Madden's point, I think that this is something that we can at least start to budget for. And even if the policy wasn't quite refined before the end of before the budget gets passed, you'll at least have the line set up in the budget to address this. It would be preferable that we would have this in place before we made, you know, big decisions about these types of events. We'll do our best to give you the second draft by the next council meeting, but it could go into the early May one. It really does depend on how quickly we can do this. It would be ideal if I could at least give you a 7-day notice on the 23rd, that you would have at least that to look at before a final comes through in May. So that's our commitment.
Councillor Foster?
Yes, I'm wondering how it works when we have an NSFM conference that's held in Yarmouth, such as the annual meeting. Some years it's in Halifax, Truro, Sydney. Some years it's held in Yarmouth. I'm thinking of the spring workshop that will be held in Yarmouth this year. Is that a significant cost to our municipality? And do the 3 units in the county cost share? Or do more than the 3 units cost share because it's in this end of the province? For example, Barrington, Clare, do they participate in the cost? That's what I'm curious about.
I know that.
And would we be restricted by the 20% in a case like that?
That's a good question. I know that in terms of the conference that's coming up this spring, some of the events, like the social event in the evening is sponsored, or not sponsored, but YASTA has taken that on.
Okay.
So that part of that is from the marketing levy money, so that will be
Okay.
covered. But there will be definitely, when an area hosts
Yes.
a conference like that, there is a requirement from the units in the area. I know
Oh.
the 3 units will be expected to pay
I can see the 3
Through YASTA.
units.
through YASTA.
Through
yes.
YASTA.
I can see the 3 units, but I could never see an NSFM conference coming to Shelburne, because I don't think they have the infrastructure to
Right.
hold it.
Correct.
And
I
that's
can't
where-
see them coming to Clare or even Digby, maybe Digby, but that's pushing it a little bit. So, but still, they will be benefiting from having a conference in this area, and I was wondering if they participate in the cost, or if it's all borne by the 3 units in the county.
Through you, Madam Chair, I can speak on the AMA. The AMA Spring Conference is at Digby Pines.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and actually, later on this agenda, you have a request to sponsor. These
Okay.
amounts are typically very small, like they're usually under their $1,000. So they're
Okay.
not the ones, I don't think this policy was meant to pick up something like that. But,
Right.
but again, to your point, great observation. Sometimes you build a policy with good intentions and you miss things. That's an example of one, right? So, and honestly, outside of Digby Pines and the Grand or the Mariner Center, I'm not sure we could host any of these in too many places in the Tri-County, certainly not in Argyle.
Right.
But those requests don't just come to us, they do go to as far as Barrington and up the Digby Way when the AMA meets in Digby.
Okay, thank you.
So that could be an exclusion.
Certainly could be an exclusion from this. There's no exclusion to this, right? It's the guts of a policy.
So that's a good point.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on that item? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to 15D, my addition. So I, before the meeting, sent out a draft of a letter that we could possibly send. So the fund has reached out and they're looking for a letter of support. They're sending in letters of support. They have a proposal, an ongoing proposal for the recognition of Marc Lescarbot as a person of national historic significance to our area. And they are making this proposal to the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada. So they're not looking for anything financial, just a letter of support. So just wondering if anybody is willing to make a motion to that effect. Okay, moved by Councillor Bourque, seconded by Councillor Foster. Questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you. Number 16 for correspondence and information. 16A, we have the Yarmouth County Trail Development Association, their annual accountability report. We also have 16B, notice of land use bylaw amendment from the Municipality of Yarmouth. So when neighboring municipality amends their bylaw, they have to notify us. This has to do with signage or signs. Questions on those? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to number 17, financial requests. So 17A, we do have a financial request coming from the Association of Municipal Administrators of Nova Scotia, or AMANS. It's a sponsorship request for the Spring 2026 conference. There was an attachment to that one. Their spring conference is in Digby, at Digby Pines. They're looking for, in the middle of the attachment, you will notice that it says that contributions in the past have typically been in the range of $1,000. However, any level of support is appreciated and entirely voluntary. So I'm just wondering what the wish of council is on this one. Councillor Bourque.
Thank you, Warden. So last year, I'm sure did we give out anything out last year or the last time it was in our area?
We did. It wasn't last year, but we did give in the past. I would also note that Argyle is, some Argyle staff are participating in the executive organizing this because it's broader than just Digby. I believe that it would have been $1,000, but I'm not 100% certain on exactly the amount. You caught me with a good one there. Our recommendation would be, if it was $500, we would have given it because we have the ability to do that. So, certainly up to $1,000 could be your decision. Somewhere in between 500 and 1,000, I believe, would be very much appreciated by that group. It's entirely up to you as council to make that decision since it's more than 500.
I'll make a motion for 1,000.
Okay, so it's moved by Councillor Boudreau, seconded by Councillor Digdon to approve a sponsorship in the amount of $1,000 to the Amen Spring Conference 2026. Any questions on that one? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Number 18, we have agenda topics for the next meeting or notice of motion by councilors. Is there anything that any council member wants to bring up? Okay, seeing none. Question period? Nothing there. Number 20 on the agenda, we have an in-camera item, section 22.2, contract negotiations. So we will need a motion to go in camera. Moved by Councillor Bork, seconded by Councillor Surratt. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. We will go in camera.